Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
We're not going to talk about the fact that I had my microphone all the way up there. I forgot that was right, like all the way up there. I'm just happy you were able to hear me before all of this. But anyways, season 2, and I'm still doing this shit. Okay, here we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaking motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, we're talking about drunk sex. So, if you're out here drinking and all that good stuff and you're fucking, always remember that consent is important, that being inebriated does not really lead towards consent. It does cancel out consent, y'all. So be mindful of that, whoever you're engaged with. If you do decide to have drunk sex with the person, please make sure it's somebody that you trust. One of the things that we highlight here is that when it does come to drunk sex, personal autonomy is a thing. So people who do have it for the pleasure of it, they're doing that with someone that they do trust. Not everyone's worthy of that act. So keep that in mind. If it's someone that you really do not trust or feel secure around, do not engage. And also remember, drunk sex, it does not always equal consent. So, yes, on today's episode, I have a podcast fave, Tyrell, on the line. And like I said, we're talking about drunk sex. But before we get into the gritty, I don't know what the fuck I just said. But before we get all into it, I do want to give Tyrell you know, I forgot what I'm saying. It's been a long day. I'm sorry. But I do want to give him a chance to just introduce himself since it is a new season. Y'all can go back to the old episodes, to get all the other information about this beautiful man. But Tyrell, who the fuck are you?
Yes, hello to everybody. If you are returning, welcome back to season 2. We are bigger and better. And so, for anyone that is new, that are new viewers, and we hope that we have a lot of new viewers out there for my friend here. So, I am, Tyrell Collins. I'm actually in my doctoral studies. I have a focus in Black, queer, and trans rhetoric and studies. So that's a little bit, about me. I have a background in English and in writing. So I love to be here. I love to talk about relationship and sex positivity, and to get into, drop some gems every now and then. Turn another year older. Recently, like I feel more wise.
That's
I feel more wise. So if I can just impart a little bit about what I think or believe, and it happens to be something that makes you think a little bit differently, then that's all that we can ever ask for.
and I forgot to even text you. Thanks for the reminder. Happy belated birthday. Yes.
Thank you.
I remember you
Yes.
mentioned it on the last recording that we did for November, and I was like, let me remember to send this mofo a text message, and I forgot. I clearly
And
forgot.
look, I don't know if your golden year is supposed to be your year of wisdom, or I don't really know technically what it's actually supposed to be, but I feel like I'm in that space. So
Hmm.
look. This the best year. This is like the best year for me as far as like advice. So you better get it out of me while you can.
Look, I swear, like that 25 to 30. I'm not at my 30s yet. Well, by the time this airs, I will be 30. But all of it has been a blur. Like I
Mm,
know I've enjoyed most of it outside of, 2020 foolishness and pandemic shit. But outside of that, I really have been enjoying that 25 to 30s gray area. And I call it the
mm,
gray area because I be forgetting my age all the time. I just know I'm not 30
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, the thing is like a lot of people ask me how I feel about being 29, and the thing is that, you know, being on that cusp of 30, I think because of where I am in my studies, because I will be finished, hopefully finished with my studies within the next couple years, and, you know, moving on to the job market, and, you know, hopefully getting my own place and things like that. So I'm actually looking forward to my 30s. Like my 20s were okay, but, you know, like brother is tired of like being like financially unstable. So, you
Mm,
know, even, so I'm tired. So I'm looking forward to moving into a new phase of my life that hopefully, I'm not saying it's going to be an all smooth transition, but looking to come into a new era, if you would say,
mhm.
of just, you know, establishing my own personal space and who I want in that space, who I
Yeah.
don't want in that space. So, you know, I'm looking forward to 30s.
Look, the way like me and Shane, we had this conversation a while
Mm,
back, is that we're both leaning into 30s so that we can get our 30s glow on, so we can have that glow for the entire decade. Because look, 35 is great. That's like an upgrade period, but you got to come into that glow strong. And I was telling
mm,
her, look, I missed the that 21-year-old glow, and I kind of skipped into like the 25-year-old glow. But for 30, oh no, I'm preparing myself. I'm going to make sure this is that good as decade. We're not playing those fucking
mm,
games. So yeah,
right.
go ahead and get your prep work in order so you can go ahead and lead into your 30 glow just as great.
Yes.
Look, we're gonna shine throughout the entire decade. Fuck what everybody else
Exactly.
says.
Exactly. Like 30's gonna be the come up decade.
Exactly.
Like I'm here world. Like
Exactly. Now, did you drink anything for your birthday?
I didn't, you know, I'm not really a celebratory kind of person.
Hmm.
So, you know, I really don't like really make a big fuss about my birthday. So really I was actually with my mom, which was, you know, always good. And we actually did something that's kind of like a little tradition for us. We just went to get ice cream. I haven't had like a
Oh,
banana split in like such a long time. So, you know, just got a little ice cream, and, you know, I just, you know, chilled out. I didn't need to, you know, do anything.
oh, that's so adorable. I love it. I love it. See, for my birthdays, I just call off work and pretty much don't do anything. But I would say as of like 2016-ish, I decided that I'm just gonna, if I can, take like the entire week off and just go somewhere and just do, that's
Mm.
like my self-care time.
Yes. Yes. Like, yeah, I have like all types of like little small ideas like I would want to do for like a birthday, like a maybe like a retreat, or, you know, like something like
Mm.
that. Something that is, you know, like low key, but like I get to like you know, just go somewhere, a small trip or something, you know. But yeah, usually I don't need to, you know, do anything too much. I just, you know, I'm blessed to see another year of life.
Amen. See, I know for my 30th, because I've been looking at prices too, because I was like, let me go out of the country or something like that. I don't understand why it's so expensive outside in February. Like,
Yeah.
like what are we doing?
No, and that's the thing, like because my birthday is always during like hurricane season, it's like damn, like I
Mm,
can't even like travel to some place. I'm like,
wow,
shoot.
it's wild. But
Mm.
still gonna get that little good self-care going on. But
Yes, always, always.
I know I'm 35, and that's definitely going to happen. So
Mm.
now to get into the episode, uh, like I said, we are talking about drunk sex. Do you have any like personal connections with alcohol, or have you ever had drunk sex in the past, anything like that?
I haven't, but I know a lot of people who have.
Mm,
And yeah, the thing about drunk sex is that, you know, I heard like a psychologist one time, she was saying that even if you are in the confines of like a relationship, that two people cannot consensually consent to sex when you're impaired.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's kind of like on the cusp. I kind of agree and don't agree all at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because I think everybody's intoxication level is very different and there are other factors. So for me, I think that the base of it is that if you still cannot operate in the nature of consent and check in when you are inebriated or drunk, then you should not be having sex.
Agreed. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not gonna say like, oh, like just because like we're maybe dating or we're in a relationship that, like just because we're drunk doesn't mean like we can't consent to sex. But if we know that, hey, I'm kind of out of it, you kind of out of it, we shouldn't be engaging in sexual activity.
Exactly. And ooh, when the episodes just start mixing up, I think this episode released in season 1, but like the conversation I had with Shane about it,
Mm,
or was it with Shane? It was somebody, but we were talking about how like this person had a friend who was just like, or was it their partner? I forget. All these conversations tend to blend together at one point, but essentially, because their partner saw them and they were just so intoxicated, they chose like, I know that wanted to do this, but because
mm,
you're so drunk, I don't feel comfortable with doing that.
right.
And I think that's something that goes on with the trust within relationships too, because they recognize that, oh, my partner is way too far gone, that I want them to be pleased, but I also want to be pleased with having sex with them, and because they are extremely drunk, I'm not
Mm,
going to do that because I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to be receiving any pleasure. And I'm
right.
going to feel as though I'm violating my partner if I were to continue to do that. And I think that's a great
Mm.
balance to understand and know when it does come to those kind of situations with other people.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's one of those aspects that, yeah, like I said, because everybody is so individualistic, and I think that it
Hmm.
takes for somebody who is completely honest with you. And I think that even if you don't have a history of being what is known as like sloppily drunk, or like you're cool, you may have that one time where you may lose a little bit of control, and it's not even in the forefront of your mind, and you cross a line, with somebody that, now, you got to deal with the consequences of potentially. So I think, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, I think there was an article that had a question like, can drunk sex ever really be ethical?
Hmm.
you know so it's like, even under the best kind of like circumstances, what do we consider? And I think that that's another conversation, like, what do we consider the ethics around our sexual engagement? And also, and this is such an important topic, because it's like, this a good conversation to have with like potential daters or potential partners. Like, if you know that you're going to be out, having some drinks or whatever, now to me, I think like, hey, like, there's nothing wrong with like some drunk kisses, like some little neck action, or what have you. But it's kind of like that old school saying, we can only go to first, like we can only go to first or second base, like that we can't go to third base.
Hmm. Just, put the brakes on real quick if we go too
Yeah,
far. I
because
get that.
like, yes, because let's not pretend like, like we're nuns for any reason. Like, hey, when we feeling it, like, emotions get a little aroused, other things get aroused as well, and hey, we could, be doing a little something, but
Mhm.
you just have to know when to have that cutoff period. And if you know that you're someone that is, like, a lot of people say, like, I get really horny when I'm drunk.
The Soliloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Soliloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Soliloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Know that you're someone that is like a lot of people say, like, I get really horny when I'm drunk, you know. So it's like if you know that you're that way and you know that you can't really control those urges, then you don't need to put yourself in a, you know, sexual situation.
And
So
I like that you mentioned that, you know, when you get drunk you get horny, because, you know, some people, they do not necessarily become a whole different person, but they exude a different personality in a sense, or a heightened personality. And for me personally, I feel as though the person you are while drunk is the thing that's been on your mind the longest,
mm,
rather than
yeah.
the alcohol is making you this person. Uh,
Right.
so,
Right. And that's something that's very interesting because like I think she's a sexologist named Madeline Monroe. She said one time that, you know, like because I think she's based in like the UK,
mhm.
and basically they were saying because people are socialized in drinking at, you know, younger ages than, you know, of course we have here in the United States where, you know, it's illegal. That alcohol is like a kind of social lubricant. I
Mm,
think that's the way that she phrased it. Because for a lot of people, alcohol and sex go hand in hand. If you think about like how if you go to approach, let's just say, you know, old school, like, you know, you're going to like approach somebody at the bar or, you know, something like that, you've already sized them up, you know, sized them or looked them down, you know, physically. And, you know, like, oh, I'm sending, you know, I'm going to want to send this person a drink, or, you know, like we're having, you know, two or three drinks, and, you know, like, hey, you know, that can be a invitation for something else. Like, so for a lot of people, a drink is not really just a drink.
mm.
Like they're expecting to get something out of it. So yeah, so for a lot of people in their mindset, alcohol and sex go hand in hand.
That makes sense. That really does make sense. I didn't even think about it like that. Um, the transactional things of our society. The drink equals sex. But
Mm,
I get it, now that you brought that perspective, because even, you know, like the songs buy, you know, buy you a drink and all that other shit, or even, because like for me, if I were to just say alcohol is used as a social lubricant, I would have thought of in a way
mm,
of bringing conversation to like
right.
a few people, like whenever you see like on TV shows, and they,
Hmm.
you know, slide the drink down to the edge of the bar, and they're just like, oh, it's on this person over here, and you know, they go over
Right.
there and get to know them, but at the same time it is with the intention
Yeah.
to start
Yeah.
fucking later on. So
Exactly. And in fact, one of actually a favorite show of mine that used to come on the channel Freeform, I actually stopped watching after they, I think, really like mishandled the nature of like a, you know, kind of drunk sex, you know, kind of story.
mhm.
That I really did not like between like these two characters who were friends at one point. They dated, you know, it didn't work out, but something happened at the party, and it's not to take anything away from women or their what they innately feel, but the reason why I had a problem with this storyline was because this main character, who is a woman, like, you know, this friend of yours, this is not somebody you just met.
Mhm.
And it's not to say like things cannot happen with people that you know, that you don't know. So I'm definitely not saying that. But the reason why I did not like the writing of it is because you were also inebriated as well. So you really don't know what happened. She woke up the next morning and she felt off. And I'm not taking anything away from that. You know, you always
Mhm.
listen to your body, but you have no proof of anything, or, you know, like all you have is really just what's going on inside you. Like you have that feeling. But it's kind of like, you know, her friend, he got kicked out of school. He got demonized, you know, by his friends over something that you don't really know what happened. And
Mhm.
that's the thing I had about the problem with the writing of this story, was not because of the fact that, you know, she, you know, felt something, or, you know, she didn't follow her instincts, but you're following your instincts when your instinct could really be wrong, and you're ruining this man's reputation. Because it's not like you were conscious
Mm,
of it, and now, it was a really complicated storyline, but it's just I really did not like the way it was handled. It was kind of one of those stories that it really tended to be one sided, and at the conclusion of it, you still don't know what happened. And so
mm.
that's just a PSA message. It's kind of like, if you don't even want to question about what happened, don't put yourself into the situation.
I get that. I definitely get that because one of the conversations, this was actually within a workshop I did back when I was in housing. It was a consent workshop, and we were talking about the drunk sex situation, and someone brought up the question about, well, what if we're both completely drunk? And
Mm,
I literally told them, then you technically sexually assaulted each other. Like,
mm,
because at the end of the day, neither one of you could give consent. Now, on from a legal standpoint, there would be the give and take of who was the most drunk, or who was the most aware of everything that's going on. But the rules that be on the books most of the time is if you have a drop of alcohol in your system, then you're unable to give consent, depending on what state you're in.
mm,
So it's like in those situations, the there's no true justice in a way, because both individuals are intoxicated, and to place the blame on one entity, like you were saying with the
mm,
dude in this situation, where he has to be the person that gets kicked out, ostracized, demonized, and all of that, is unfair to him, because he doesn't know what happened, and neither does she know what happened. And
right.
granted, yes, if you do feel uncomfortable, that is a proper time to, if you want, get a rape kit or all of
Yeah.
that to give you some clarity of what happened that night. If there are some traces of semen, look into the room.
Right.
Were there condoms taken out? All of these things are important to know,
Right.
um, prior to just saying this person raped me. And
Mm,
even in those situations, to just say, okay, you're because this has happened to some male college students, and I
mm,
hate that for them too, because one, yes, believe victims, especially you have to believe women too, since when it does come to sexual assault, people don't believe women at all, or
right.
women don't often get the justice that they deserve when they do report. So that there is a necessity in that. But in these types of situations, there is so much nuance and so many things you have to discuss to figure out what happened. Even taking it to like therapy, if there's some kind of hypnosis therapy that might help bring back those memories, whatever is possible, utilize that.
Mm,
But to just have that, oh, okay, this happened, they were both drunk, suspected sex or actual sex, now they're both out, it's hard to really say that was truly a sexual assault. Well, you can say it's a sexual assault, but in the context of both people being drunk, that means both
yeah.
have to get kicked out.
Exactly.
It's not a
Exactly.
one party holds all the fault in that
Yeah.
situation. And
And yeah.
like even on top of that, because alcohol is the number one date rape drug. It is
Mm,
also a date rape drug that's used by women too. It's not just
yeah.
men who do it. Women
Absolutely.
use alcohol to intoxicate, like get men more intoxicated in order to have sex. It does
Mm,
happen. I don't know. I could say it happens in a less amount. Well, in terms of there's a disproportionate, you know, dispro- disproportionate perpetration that is, mainly men, but in terms of use of alcohol in that perpetration of sexual assault, I don't know for sure. It wasn't in my research. Probably should have looked into that. But women do use that as a
mm,
means to, have sex with men too. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I ultimately say, it is also, individualistic. And that's why you have the sayings of, you need to know how to hold your liquor,
Hmm.
and things like that because we're all built differently. Our systems are all different. And like I know for myself, just speaking, I'm a shorter guy. I'm 5'3". And so I know for myself, one, I don't never like to engage in much drinking when I'm out anyway. But two, I don't necessarily know how my body is going to respond to the
Hmm.
nature of alcohol because, something that, I'm just going to say a taller person who's like 6 feet, can handle because we know that when alcohol gets into your bloodstream, there is a lot of physiological things that happen, with the nature of consumption of alcohol. So what you can handle, I may not be able to handle, you know. So and I think that everybody should get to a place where, you know what you feel comfortable with. And I know for
Hmm.
me, it's like when I'm out, I'll have maybe two drinks, at most, maybe three, but it definitely goes no past than three,
Hmm.
you know, because I don't like to drink to be drunk. I actually don't find any fun in being drunk, you know. I like to drink, as I say, like to get me a little buzzed,
Hmm.
but I don't actually, like being drunk. So I can only count maybe 2 times in my life I've actually been drunk.
I get you there. I'm pretty much the same way. Like I like my buzz. And I will have to
Mhm.
say this, people, know your limits. Definitely know
Yeah.
your limits. Like you said, 3 drinks, you good, you got your buzz going on, life is great. I know like for myself, I have a very high tolerance, except for wine, because wine drunk is a whole nother drunk. Oh my God. The magic of wine, it
Fine.
baffles me. Like I don't be knowing what the hell is going on like that. Taylor Porter, yes, Taylor, love you, girl. But like when it comes to liquors, I can have like 3 shots, be good. Probably might have a mixed drink in that, and life is great. I have a buzz going on. I'm feeling good. I'm cognizant of everything that's going on. I can
Mm-hmm.
party. I can still party. I can have fun. But I also don't try to get myself to a point where one, I have to get an Uber. Two, I have to call somebody to pick me up. Three,
Right.
okay, I've gotten drunk, throw up drunk way too many times in my life, and still been able to, move
Right.
like maneuver and live life or whatever. But I try not to get that drunk. But I personally do not like that feeling either,
Mm.
of being so drunk that you don't know where up is down and what's down
Yeah.
is up, you left and right, it's all fucked up. I can't do it. I can't do it. I like to be in a mindset where I can move. I know what's going on. I feel secure in myself, and I'm just lighthearted. I'm feeling good. I'm relaxed, and I'm
Mm.
thinking about when I'm going to take this damn nap. That's where I like to be when it comes to like being out here and drunk.
Yeah. And also what I have found, like, well, not found, but, have, read about the correlation of alcohol and sex in particularly is that some people, they will use drunk sex as a means of like, that's the standard for them.
Mm,
Especially like when you're young and you're just finding out, like about, like your sexuality and things like that. Like some people have ultimately admitted, like they don't necessarily, like if they're not engaged in sex like consistently, as in the confines of like a relationship, the only times where they may have sex is during like drunk encounters because one, they don't see it as a problem because
mm,
they're not, out here, like sleeping with just anybody. But when they do, it provides them, all those things that, alcohol is supposed to, that is supposedly in air quotes provide, like
mm,
that sense of release of inhibition. Drunk sex has, some people have said like it helps them, get over the anxiety that they have about engaging in intimacy with another person. And I know like for me, it's just like the complete opposite. Because if I'm like inebriated, like I'm just gonna be like what's going on. So for me, I have the opposite. But I do know for a lot of people that they actually prefer to have drunk
mm.
sex. You know.
And
So.
yeah, there is a good number of people who really do prefer drunk sex. Like, and there's those who also cannot get it up or initiate or even be involved in the sexual experience while being drunk because their body needs it so much just to get them aroused.
Right.
So, like for those people who, have conditioned their bodies to that, I challenge them to think about, their sexual experience with themselves. If they do have like masturbatory, like sex with themselves, like if you're out here masturbating and do you have to drink in order to get yourself off or are you able to
Hmm.
do it freely? um
Yes.
that is something to really think about because look, when we're raised in a society where binge drinking is considered the norm, then
Mm.
it's hard to like think otherwise in terms of like how you express your sexuality. Because one,
Right.
I have to go out, party, get drunk, get wasted, and then find somebody to hook up with and then go have sex with them. And that's not the
Right.
healthy choice for a lot of people.
Yeah, and even just like when you're meeting people or you're in certain friend groups, because let's be honest, like, I was actually a spoken word poet for one of the years of Take Back the Night that we had when I was in college. And Take Back the Night was centering on helping people who, especially women and children, who have been, obviously abused in some sort of fashion. And of course, men are included in that too, but of course, that doesn't get talked about as much. But one of the things that was commonly going on, and mind you, being at a HBCU, so of course, around, a good plethora of Black women who were sharing their stories. And what was such a disconnect that I saw from people from other universities that were sharing their stories and, the women that were, coming to my university is that, they were having the thing about like, what, like we have a buddy system,
Hmm.
but it's like when you're having to find the right friends to trust, because like a lot of the women like that were in my psychology class, they were flabbergasted about some of these stories. Not the fact that it happened once, but that alcohol induced rape or drug rape happened to some, women several times. Like it has
Hmm.
happened on very multiple occasions. And so, it just got to the conversation about like, no, when I'm out with my friends or whatever, we came together, so we're leaving together.
Hmm.
Like, if you want to go and hook up with somebody, y'all can arrange that for another night. But as long as you're with me or in my presence, if we came together, rest assured, we're going to leave together.
Amen to that.
So yeah, so it's kind of like summer, and I even had, kind of like was taken aback about so particularly for, certain women as they were sharing their stories. Like, okay, I get it, that, misjudgment, happened. But the fact of the matter is that when it's happened repeatedly,
Hmm.
and so it's kind of like when you do happen to say that, you were a victim to this or you were a survivor of this, what do you do to ensure that you're not in that type of situation again?
Hmm.
Because it's kind of like if you haven't not necessarily learned anything from it, but if you haven't been given the tools and the skills to deal with what led up to this situation transpiring, then what do you have? And a lot of times when it comes to alcohol, one of the first signs of being assaulted or, almost being assaulted is the nature of coercion. You
Hmm.
know, especially if you're not familiar with drinking or, particular alcohol or things like that, you don't know how your body is going to react. And that's part of the reason why I don't engage in certain substances. Like I'm not, just speaking, for myself, I'm not a drug user,
Hmm.
you know, and, one, because I don't have any interest in doing any kind of even recreational drugs, but everybody's bodies react very differently. So again, something you may drink or may be doing, I could have an totally different reaction to it,
Hey, that's true.
you know? So yeah, it's just one of those things that you just have to take accountability and ownership of yourself, because you are the only one that has autonomy over your body. And if you are inebriated and you are in a dangerous situation, you're not going to have that anymore.
And that is an unfortunate truth. And I just have to say this just for
Mm.
someone who might be thinking otherwise, but this is not a way of blaming the victim.
No,
in any way. It's
no.
more of because even whenever I have conversations with people in terms of like accountability and whatnot, it's not saying that that person's at fault of another person's actions upon them, because that's not true. That person, the perpetrator, is the person who made them a victim. That was their actions that done that. Now, the opposite side of that is that, hey, in this moment, these are my actions that I've participated in that may have made it to me being more vulnerable. Then I need to figure out a way to, protect myself in order to, you know, keep myself from being in that position once more. And the analogy I like to use for some people is whenever someone leaves a door unlocked or leave a door completely open, that means whoever wants to rob the house, they could just walk up in there and steal things. Now, at the end of the day,
Mm,
the person who robbed the house is the person who needs to go to jail. The owner is technically not at fault because, look, they left the door
yep,
open, but that does not give anybody the right to enter because
exactly.
it's their home, that's their private house. You should not be entering in anybody's home that you're not invited to. So,
Exactly.
again, that person's responsible for their actions. Now, on the flip side, the owner of the house, the lesson that, not saying that you learn a lesson from being victimized, but the end message is, okay, maybe to prevent this from happening in the future, remember to close my door a little bit more often, or have
Right.
cameras or something to patrol just in case someone decides to violate my home
Mm,
in the future. Again,
exactly.
they're not the cause of their victimization. They're not the cause of somebody robbing them. That was the action of somebody who wanted to do that because that
Mm,
was their intentions in their mindset to do so.
yes. Yeah, and just know that, again, this is not about, blaming victims or survivors by any means. Like no one has the right to violate you in any type of circumstance. And what I just want people to know is that you want to just try to always make the best decisions for yourself.
Exactly.
When those things happen, because even when you're out with people that you love and that you trust, it's kind of one of those things. Like I say, at the end of the day, I trust me,
Mm.
you know, more than anyone, more than anyone else. And I don't know. I think for me, having a little bit, I'm not gonna say like outwardly social anxiety, but I don't like to be in big, necessarily like to be in big crowds. A lot of times. Even with being in bar spaces, like I'll go to a bar, I'll have a nice time, whatever. But usually I don't like being in bar spaces too much because I'm like I can't never hear myself, speak because I'm not like a loudspeaker. But yeah, so it's kind of like, except for maybe lounges or anything that has more of a more relaxed atmosphere, definitely take stock into where you're going
Mm.
and being served alcohol.
Mm.
Obviously, if you are, drinking any type, if you're engaging in any type of alcoholic beverages, keep track of, how many drinks that you're having,
Mm.
of course, because it's very easy to lose track of that.
It is.
And then especially if you're with someone who are, they're buying the drinks and stuff like that, so it's not on my dime, you know. Uh, so that's a real easy thing. So there's just a lot of little things that go on in social settings when it comes to drinking that can happen very instantaneously, and before you know it, you
Mm.
know you can be in a situation that you really don't want to be in, or even just having the scare of it, because a lot of near misses have happened. And speaking particularly to especially queer men of color, um, the nature of assaults not being necessarily
Mm.
taken as seriously, or things like that, to recognize that you want to be put in positions where you have to defend yourself being inebriated,
Mm.
as well, because yeah, definitely sexual assault takes place in our communities of queer men of color communities, at more alarm not necessarily more alarming rates, but it's definitely at alarming rates that do not get talked about
I agree.
as much. So
Yeah, it is definitely, well, rape in general, sexual assault in general is
Yeah.
underreported.
Yeah.
And it does happen. And then when you do report, and it's a sad truth of, because this is where we live in society today, that you will be blamed regardless of your sexual
Mm,
assault, as in, why were you with this guy? Why were you drunk with this guy? You know how men are. And
mm,
it's like, but I'm here with you. I'm telling you about my traumatic experience and hoping to get support, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get it. And then,
mm,
for depending on who you report it to, they might have the mindset that, oh, you're queer, you're a sin. Therefore, you got what you deserved. Sinners get,
mm.
you know, punished. That was your punishment for doing what you're doing, living the lifestyle
Right.
that you're living, and it's
Exactly.
extremely unfair. Now, one of the things, because you touched base on it earlier, and this is also something that I wanted to address too,
Mm,
before I ended the episode, and that is how some people engage in drunk sex as a coping mechanism, or to
mm.
re-traumatize themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something that has been researched. I probably should look into a little bit more, but I've had conversations with some friends about who've been victims of sexual assault, um, through by means of alcohol, and they also enjoy drunk sex. And mentally, I'm like, okay, why are you putting yourself back into a position where you might fall into that same predicament that you were before? And of course, over the years, I've also learned that sometimes you should not ask a direct question like that to people. But but that uh, brought me on the concept of how people do repeat cycles based off of whatever traumatic experience that they had. And
Hmm.
some people do that as a way to gain power when they lost that power from somebody else. And some
Right.
also do that in order for them to punish themselves for allowing themselves to be in that predicament to begin with. But the only thing here is that they're making the choice to be punished that way. Um,
Exactly.
so, what are your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. Definitely, alcohol is used for many types of coping mechanisms, and it can even stem from, obviously, stemming from being very little. You may have seen, parents or guardians, in abusive or toxic situations. And Lord forbid, if you were in a situation where you had an intoxicated adult around you and you were obviously the person that was singled out, in this instance to be violated. So any type of violation is, it goes on so many levels. And
Mm,
I think, particularly with alcohol, it's not something that just instantly happens. It's something that I think progresses. And let me actually reword this. It's something that it starts out as, if you're drinking, you may say some off the cuff things, your words are starting to slur or whatever, but it's like this very gradual, progression. It's not, a lot of times I think, I don't know, personally for myself, but I don't think that sometimes, a lot of times, like assault just like instantly happens. I think that it's a gradual progression, and you have to deal with each thing that has happened in that gradual progression of not feeling safe in this moment. And then if this person is coming towards me or has forced themselves on me, I have to deal with not just the physical implication of that, but the mental of it, the emotional of it, and all of these kind of aspects. And so, yeah, I think that, and we can repurpose that,
mhm,
and especially into teenage and adulthood, where we are using the nature of alcohol to escape just not feeling. Some people use alcohol to feel something, and some people, they use it as a coping mechanism as not to feel something.
mhm.
So it really is just, obviously individual, and neither one obviously is healthy at all. So
Agreed. Well, I'll say that has been a wonderful conversation. So it's been a while. And of course, I still have my books and my cards. So I'm going to start up that would not would you rather. Never have I ever. We're going to start off
Okay.
with that, and
Yeah.
then I'll probably do a would you rather and a sex question. We'll see we'll see. It's all depending on time. All right, you ready?
Hmm.
Ooh, okay. Never have I ever read an erotic novel.
I have.
Okay, and what was the name of it?
I have the erotic novels that I have read actually come from like very like classic like black erotica like Zane.
Yes,
Yes, I was a fan of like the Zane Sex Chronicles and
yes.
everything. Yeah, so I really did enjoy Zane. Like and the thing is that I kind of like have a little bit of a bias because being a writer myself, I always feel like they always showcase like the black erotica like in like regular stores and stuff like that more than they showcase like classic black literature and things like that. So that's my own personal problem. But
That's a good
but
point.
it's kind of like as I go through like the shelves and I'll be seeing like all of this black erotica, I'm like, this is all like almost the same, just a different author slapped on the titles of it, because there is nothing that no, I'm not going to say nothing because obviously I have not read, but it's just even from the cover or from the
Mm,
titles of the work and stuff like that, it's every all black erotica is really all put into this kind of heteronormative space,
mm,
and so it's like, well, where is the black erotica that is talking about maybe a woman who has maybe had traditionally relationships with men, but maybe she's having feelings for like like her best friend, or something that's just different, or like I for a book club that I belong to, I we read recently the collection story of oh, I cannot not remember the name, but we read a collection story that was called the Gilda stories, and that that particular it is considered to be black lesbian vampire erotica.
I fuss with it.
Like all of that, kind of set into the nature where it's not anything that is overly done. It's like you want, you follow this mythology, but it's very much rooted in deep, African spirituality as well. So it's harnessed in real life, but you follow this woman Gilda as she is she's turned into a vampire. You follow her throughout like so many hundreds of years of her life. She does have relationships with, men and women. And when we had our book club meeting, one of the interesting concepts about the conversation we had that you really don't see in a lot of mythology comes from the nature of what makes someone turn someone else into a vampire or someone else into another creature. That was a staple of the Gilda stories. And so I'm not going to get off on a tangent on that, but I am here to say like that black erotica. I just wish we had more encompassing stories because there are
Mhm.
ones that are out there. We just need to get them on the shelf.
See,
We need to get them on the shelf.
again, he dropping words. I don't know if we even gonna get into other stuff because now we're talking about literature. First, let me answer. Yes, I have read erotic novels. I love them. Zane
Yes.
is my girl. Love her. So I agree because I walked past the because I was in Walmart.
Mm.
The memory I'm connecting to right now, I was in Walmart and I was looking at all the covers and I'm like, all these fucking covers are the same. Are all I'm not even trying to even look at or read these books because one, I granted the interior of it may be completely different, but at the same time, I'm not trying to read something that's like copy and paste. I don't want that. I
Right.
want things that give me true storyline. And that's the one thing I loved
Yeah.
about Zane is because like for me,
Right.
I personally, this might not be true. I have not dug into the research this much, but I personally feel as though the only reason why erotica exists, in the sense, like with Zane as a writer, is for Black romance novelists
Yeah.
because all of her actual stories outside of like the Sex Chronicles, Black her flavor books and whatnot, those were romance novels that just say dick and
Hmm.
pussy and clit. That's the only
Right.
difference between
Right.
anything else. There, the writing of Zane was not using flowery language like, oh, I breath in the roses of her bush. Like nobody cares about that. Just say you were smelling her
Right.
pussy. It's
Right.
okay. Like
Like
that's
it's okay.
it's cool.
Just put it plainly.
Ain't it? But like whenever I do go to bookstores or even shop online for other books, I really miss the wow factor of books or
Mm,
even things that make you want to turn the cover. Like I don't really like too many books that have people on them anymore.
mm,
Like it's always the same looking couples. I don't want that. Like I will rather like Skyscraper by Zane. The cover has a whole skyscraper on it. You wouldn't
exactly.
know that book is about sex. Like you know the writer, you know her, history and what kind of content she produced, but at the end of the day, the cover it was phenomenal. It would look good. It was still a good book. Nowadays, I don't find any books that I truly connect with. You do need to send me that artist, that author, by the way, because I love me some
Yeah.
vampires. I love me some blackness. I love it all. So send that shit
Yes.
to me. I love lesbian,
Absolutely.
straight, all that, gay, queer. I love it all. Send that shit to me.
Yes.
But like, there's no space for revolutionary black artists, revolutionary black writers on bookshelves these days. And that is horrible because I know like a lot of black authors these days go the indie route because of the stories
Mm,
that they tell and how it's so outside of the norm of what the basic American society will want us to be, dive into. So
mm,
I think that's one of the things that I hate so much when I go to like
yeah.
looking for books or things like that. Because there was a point in time where I would spend $20 every month to get a new book. Did
Mm,
I read them all? Not really. Did I read some? Yes. But nowadays, it's just like there's nothing that
yeah.
really entices me. Like I do, like you said, there's no real spaces for contemporary Black writers.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to
And,
see it.
yeah, and the thing is, I think, and I just actually sent you, kind of like that link. I did remember, for any audience that, is interested, the book that I was referencing the title for, it's called The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez. It's very, searchable. It's on Amazon and, Barnes and Nobles and a lot of other places. And what really surprised me was that, like, this wasn't anything that is like new, like very new. Like, this came out in 1991. And the fact that, we are able to follow this, black like lesbian, black lesbian character, through the nature of something that's steeped in real history, but also mythology as well. I'm like, yes, let's get it. But the reason why these kind of works don't get talked about as much or they don't get their due credit is because I think a lot of times, and I'm finding this out, as I'm talking about, my writing and publishing and things like that, hopefully into the future, I'm trying to manifest that. That a lot of times people will tell, especially authors of color, like your work doesn't have a space in mainstream media. And so it's kind of like I heard one time I was at, an annual writers conference, like one of the gentlemen who was sharing his author's journey, he said that, his agent told him that his book would not be able to sell because you could not have a black boy who was book smart and street smart.
Mm.
Like, what the hell is that?
A slap in the face.
Really? So, and actually, like he was saying, his like agent or something like wanted him to like change the character or whatever. It's like, no, like absolutely not. Like, and of course he got his break at, some point. But like to, for mainstream to tell you about what stories are going to sell
Mm.
is, really like a cop out. And yeah, it may be from a more business, kind of mindset and perspective, but that's why I always want to amplify artists and telling the stories that you want to tell, because the
Mm,
stories you tell are really a reflection of not just necessarily your life, but your family's life, your friend's life, or stories that you hear that go on around you. And it's like
yes,
that classic saying: if we don't tell our stories, no one, we leave it to the devices of other people to do.
exactly.
So.
Like this is another reason why I love like indie authors, and
Mm,
it's kind of hard to find indie authors too because independent. um, but like in that space like going traditional publishing, and a lot of people don't know this, but they have once you give them the rights to your story, they can change that story however they want to make the money that they want. And it can mean removing characters, or it can mean changing the storyline, editing important scenes out of it, whatever it is that they feel as though is going to sell and keep people coming back to purchase from you, buying your books. They're going to take it out, and
mhm,
there's a point where you have to have that integrity of, hey, I understand that this is your business, but this is the story I want to tell, and this is the way I want to tell it. Outside of giving constructive criticism, different avenues, making sure the grammar and syntax and all that and formatting is correct. I don't feel as though there needs to be a section within traditional publishing that makes you have to change up
mhm.
the essence of your story at all.
Exactly. And then I think also a little bit of the hesitancy about writing erotica
Mhm.
is like the pushback that you'll get from,
Yes.
just in case your book is wanting to get into schools or, in library shelves. I mean, like, hey, a lot of authors are facing, censorship and banning and, things
Yeah.
like that. And it's kind of like when you think about it, it's like, do I really want to go through the fight of it? And, and I make, I try to pass as less judgment as I can. I'm not going to say, oh, you should put up the fight for it. That's really people's own personal choice. But for those that do, know that, oh, it's going to be an upheaval battle, and it's going to
Hmm.
take like what is happening with like author George M. Johnson for, their novel Black All Boys Aren't Blue.
Mm.
Is has been going through a lot of censorship and banning and
Yeah.
things like that. And the fact that they have been fighting out against it. And just recently it was reported that one of the schools that tried to ban it, the students stood up and said that no, we don't want banned literature. We want access to this literature.
Hmm.
And I think from George's perspective, which I have heard them speak about, this wasn't just a piece of literature, just to talk about and move on. This could, really help, save young queer kids of color's lives. And,
Yes.
like they could find something in themselves. And so, yeah, it's one, yeah, just such a shame. But yeah, that's the nature of the erotica though. And when, like you said, when you talk about language, and things like that, what language is acceptable
Hmm.
or academically inclined to use, or
Exactly.
just within the public sphere or settings, yeah, it's gonna create problems. It's
Exactly.
gonna create
Like we gotta get off this topic, but I do have,
problems.
like, even when it comes to like for my own book, and for those who have not gotten a copy, show notes is there, the essential guide how to be all that great,
Yeah,
okay, whatever.
download.
But
Yep, get it.
but with my book, just the I did it on purpose, yes, to trigger people in terms of, oh my God, what kind of book is this, but also figure out what kind of book it is. And there's been so many people, just like even in my family, who I've shared the book to for free, or even they know that I wrote it. They write the story of the book without even opening the first page. In the
Mhm.
book, like literally within the first pages, you find out exactly what the book is about and what it's not about. And
Right,
it's like you have
right.
to actually open it to really understand what this book can do for you, what it actually is about, and like just to say, oh, this book is going to really teach me how to be out here on these streets and hoeing with people, you already
Mm,
missed it. You already failed the assignment.
yeah. Yeah. So basically, people read you some erotica if you haven't. It could be do wonders for you.
It surely can. Now, I do want to do a would you rather,
Okay.
and then we can close it out. So, would you
Absolutely.
rather have a lover who is slow, gentle, and can last for hours, or have a lover who's passionate and energetic but can only last a few minutes?
Ooh. Okay. So option one was slow, gentle, can last for hours.
Hmm.
Two is passionate, excited, but only for a short time. I'm gonna go with the first option just because that's kind of more my speed. I may not necessarily last hours, so, sort of saga, but I am much more of a more gentle, slow, sensual kind of, person. So I would definitely go with the first option.
These kind of questions, I always have the same answer.
Mm,
Both of them. Because one,
both.
sometimes I'm in the mood for something that's long lasting, and
Yeah,
other times I'm just like, look, we just need to go ahead and get this in and out and be good. Life is
good.
great. I cannot be out here having hour-long sessions on a regular basis. I cannot. I'm sorry. I don't have that much time on my hand. I do live for the
Mm,
day that I do have that much time on my hand that we could be out in
right.
this motherfucker for hours. But in this current moment,
Mhm. And I think because of the fact like I've never like been in relationships, so I've never had like something like that is consistent. I think maybe I would have a little bit of a mind change if I was having something consistent. So it's like when I do have my intimate encounters now, it's like, oh yeah, like I haven't, been in this kind of space in like maybe a minute or something. So I can see like maybe how my perspective would change if I was like in a consistent relationship where we're having sex, fairly on a regular. It would just be like, okay, we got to time this. Like, okay, this can only be like 3 days out the week, or
exactly. Like, so hopefully by the time this episode airs, I'm in a whole ass relationship with somebody. We shall see how this goes.
let's manifest.
Give some
We
things
all
a
about
try,
manifestation here.
ain't it? Like I do like a slow to rough, or well, slow to quick kind of session, and soft gentle, and then somewhere in the midst,
In the midst.
mystical comes out of nowhere and says danger, and then next thing you know, everything is like
So,
a whole different scene. We're in the hood and all this other shit. Motherfuckers getting punched in the face. I'm joking. I do not punch my face. We got issues. If that happens, this is my product. Don't do that. But
Look,
a little bit of
this a money
choking or
making
some shit,
spot. You know.
But anyways, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Tyrell.
Absolutely. Always love being here.
Do you have any last words that you'd like to share with the family before we close? I close everything out.
No, I think we talked about everything. Again, just want to say, as we talked about a lot about, intoxicated or alcohol, induced sex, just really people out there, just really make the best decisions that you can for yourself in those moments. Again, you are never at fault, for anything, but do still take precautions and make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Amen to that. And also to piggyback off of that, no means no, yes means yes, and maybe does not
Mhm.
exist. It also means no. On that note, thank you all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful. You are worthy of happiness and joy. You are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.